And good morning.
Yo, yo. Happy morning.
Long time no see.
Indeed. How's
Uh,
stuff?
Not too bad. Not too bad. It's been a busy week. You know, still having some problems with my lumbar, but
Yeah. I feel like I still haven't slept too much.
yeah.
Kind of
Uh,
happens.
Interestingly, it sounds like your kid in the background's singing like the same song that they were singing last time.
He likes the song. Yeah, I know. He likes getting up with me in the morning and Broken Record Man.
So, have you been playing anything?
Not at all. Not at all.
Not at all.
Yeah, not at all. I've just been kind of overwhelmed with stuff. It's actually, I'd say it's interesting, or it sucks, but like in terms of like length of time I haven't played anything, this is probably one of the longer spells like across my life. It's just been really busy. I mean, adulting, right? A lot of
Yeah.
moving parts and stuff. Yeah, it's a weird thing, I guess. I feel like video games were always such a huge hobby for me, and I mean they remain so. But like, just in terms of how I choose my time, I just recently have had to use my time for other things, I guess, and
Hmm.
it's actually been kind of, I almost want to say nice, like not nice not playing games, but just I guess I don't know, doing some different things for once after playing games regularly for 30 years or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, not too much. Still playing. We fired up Mario Galaxy again
Oh yeah.
recently. I think last weekend. Yeah, just to finish the special world, and I just got really frustrated because I actually don't like how they do it. If you remember, say I don't know, Mario World, you beat the whole game and they give you a special world. Cool.
Hmm.
You can choose not to do the special world. You can do the special world if you want, whatever, right? Mario Galaxy. How far did you play? I think you didn't like Galaxy and you like Odyssey. Maybe Odyssey works the same way. Certainly some of the older ones did, but the way Mario Galaxy works is like each stage has between 1 and 3 stars or more with
Hmm.
secret stars and stuff available. And the whole
Yeah.
goal of the game is to get all these stars and beat all the levels, right?
Yeah,
But you don't need.
what I found annoying about Galaxy
Mhm,
is that it takes the Mario 64 approach where you
mhm,
go into the level and you're targeting a specific thing and you
mhm,
get it and then you exit the level and then you
mhm,
have to re-enter the level again
yep,
to
yep.
keep going.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I kind of don't mind that tremendously, I guess. I mean, it's interesting because there would be different ways to do it. But what I don't like is like at different stages in the game, you get these gates where it's
Hmm.
like to proceed, you need 60 stars. So there's been however many levels. Like probably once you get to that gate, at that point, you have like I tend to try and get all, not all the stars, but like I just get all the obvious stars. And so
Hmm.
typically I'd get to some gate where I need 60 stars, and there's
Yeah.
only been say 30 levels, but I've gotten like 2 or 3 stars out of each, so I just passed the gate. Once you get to the special area, once I get to the gate, almost always I had that many stars, and so near the end of the game, the gates get more and more like I don't know, annoying because they get higher and higher numbers. And I would get to a gate and I would be 2 stars short, so I'd have to go back and find levels where I
Right.
missed like a special star or something and get the special star, and then
Yeah.
finally I have enough stars I can proceed. That's okay. But now that I've beaten the game and I get to the special world, I just want to play the special levels, and they have those gates again. So to play through special world, I have to go back through the game and
Hmm.
find random stages where there's stars I didn't get and beat those special stars so that I can have enough stars to pass the gate to get to the next special level that I unlocked by beating the game. Now the thing is, especially at this point, the only stars I didn't get are the really annoying ones, like the like I
Hmm.
hate mini games, like the stupid like races you have to do and just whatever other dumb things. Like I didn't get those. So to
Yeah.
even get to all the special levels and just be able to say, yeah, I beat everything. I just went through all the levels. I have to go back and do the levels I hate. So I was getting frustrated and put it down pretty quick, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's with the gating. I recently played through Sackboy: A Big Adventure,
Uh-huh.
and they do the same thing, and I didn't care for that approach either.
I'm not a fan. Yeah.
What so it's like it's more like I guess the way they treat it is more like if you're playing Mario 3, like imagine
Okay.
that there's all these levels that you have to do
Mm-hmm.
and they're somewhat in sequence.
Mm-hmm.
But then in order to get to the airship at the very end of the level, you have to have a certain amount of collectibles that you get from each level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's like you can do the level and not find any collectibles at all, and then you can finish the level and move on to the next one, and then you can find yourself at the end of the world and you have to now go back and collect stuff in order to do it because they don't let you do it unless you have the certain number to unlock it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not a
And
fan.
what I found annoying about that is that the reverse wasn't true. Like if you did 5 levels and got all of the collectibles, you in theory had enough that you could unlock the boss,
Hmm.
but they didn't let you until you had done all the levels.
Got it. Okay.
So it felt weird in that sense that like they were gating it through these two different methods instead of just one.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, they have the same sort of thing. You beat the game and it unlocks the little special world. And for those ones, you have to have like way more collectibles than ever before. So I just, you know, I think we were like 10 short of being able to unlock one of the levels, and those special worlds were just like so like the difficulty curve was just like so steep compared to everything else that was in the game that it was just like this isn't even worth it. I'm not having fun. I don't want to do this. I want to just move on to a new game at this point.
Yep. Yep.
So it felt kind of disappointing. Like my son was like hooked on the game and wanted to keep doing it, but I'm just like, can we just do something new? Like we've been doing this for like 5 weeks in a row. I just want to do something new.
Yeah, I suggested to the kids we just move on to the next Mario, and they seemed okay with it. And then we went and did something else anyway, and I haven't gotten around to it. But I suspect I'll start playing Mario Odyssey with them at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've mentioned once or twice that I think that's like the best Mario game. So I'm eagerly awaiting you guys to play through it.
I'm I feel like
don't rush it on my behalf, but I'm eagerly awaiting it.
I feel like my response to that, which I'll give again here, was just like I feel like probably at any given time the newest one is the best one.
Maybe.
And I think your attitude was that like, or your opinion was that Odyssey was like leaps and bounds in a way, and which so I am eager to play it. Like I've played it briefly and liked it. I just don't remember it
Yeah.
being like it just felt like Galaxy and Sunshine to me. So I just haven't gotten to those. I haven't given it. Yeah, I just haven't dug in enough, I guess.
I mean, it's good if that's your opinion, is that all the newer ones have been better than the previous ones. For me, I really enjoyed Super Mario World, and then I didn't enjoy Mario 64 or Mario Sunshine or Mario Galaxy, and I haven't played Mario Galaxy 2. But for me, the 3D games have just I have not enjoyed them.
I almost feel like it's a different series though. Like you get
Yeah.
to Mario World and then you restart everything with 64, and so Mario World is the newest. Well, I guess now there's all the other 2D ones, but for the longest time that was kind of the premier 2D one, and then you had the 3D ones. But yeah, no, fair. I did you play them at the time? Because I feel like at the time they were incredible. And then
I played Mario 64 at the time, and I was just like, "This is trash." I'm playing Final Fantasy 7.
I hated. I shouldn't say hated. I was really disappointed by Zelda 64 at the time, which I think we've talked about, and everyone else like loved it and wouldn't shut up about it. And I was like,
yeah, I had never played. I played Ocarina at the first time in 2010.
Wow. Yeah.
And I suffered through it until I got to the end, and then I think I just got too busy moving, and then I never picked it up again.
That's funny. I think I enjoyed it ish, like it was fine, but it didn't blow my mind or anything. And then I hated Majora's Mask, like literal like Final Fantasy 8 level, like those two tie for my least favorite game.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I played through Mario 64 at the time, and I think I collected all the stars back when it was new. Like my next door neighbor had an N64, and we traded. I think he borrowed my PlayStation, and I borrowed his N64 for like a month. So that was fun, but I really hated the camera on it. Like I get really frustrated in 3D games when I'm trying to look at something, and then the camera just won't let me.
Yeah.
But I feel like Mario Odyssey is the first 3D Mario that I've like really enjoyed.
I mean, I enjoyed Galaxy, so I imagine I'll enjoy Odyssey. I just haven't gotten to it.
Maybe I would have felt differently if I'd done Galaxy first, but I did Odyssey first and then Galaxy, and I really, again, it's like I hate the camera controls on it, or lack thereof.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't find them terrible. I mean, it felt like a step above previous games. So I think it's like I'm coming from the perspective like my base is whatever, probably Mario 64 and Sunshine, and your base is Odyssey. So
yeah,
there's probably I don't know. I don't know where my threshold is for like 3D camera annoyance. I found it okay in Galaxy. I don't really remember any particular hiccups. And there is a control where you can like change the view I don't know if you just didn't discover it or something, but like anytime that like
Yeah,
I did need him to like, I did need the camera to be oriented differently, which is very rare.
yeah.
You had that option. So.
I just remember like there was like a space level where there's
They're
like
all
bullet
space
bill.
levels. Yeah.
I haven't played all of them, but there's like bullet bills. Like it's like you're like in outer space and you're like launching yourself in orbit around stuff. I don't know if that describes the whole game or not.
Practically, but yeah, sure. I think there was a little more of that early, like little planets instead of big stretched out areas. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. I wish I could describe it better than that. But anyway, I remember like flipping around the gravity on the different planets, and it's just like I want it to like control the camera, and I just couldn't. But anyway, um, whoever enjoys it, enjoy.
Well, I beat the game, both of them. I'm done, so I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Um, I've been playing a few smaller games.
Mhm.
I think it's been a few weeks since the last time we really caught up on if we've
Mhm.
even been playing anything. So in that time, I beat 5 games.
Okay, what are they?
Um, one of them was The Beginner's Guide, which is made by the same guy that made the Stanley Parable.
Oh yeah, yeah, okay.
So it's interesting because most of these aren't really games, uh, like
It's
in the
like
sense of Mario. Like there's no
it's like
lives and stuff.
Edith Finch kind of stuff.
Yeah. So Beginner's Guide is kind of interesting in that there's less to do than there is in Edith Finch.
Mhm.
It's an hour and a half, and you walk around, and it's basically a short film that you kind of feel like you're controlling the pacing of a little bit.
I see.
Um, so it's interesting. I enjoy it. It's like talking about um, creativity and how when you're making games, whether or not there's an obligation to like appease the fans or whether or not to just create stuff for yourself and whatnot. So
It's,
I found it kind of interesting.
it's interesting they scoped that to making games. I just feel like that could be basically any creative endeavor.
Yeah. But it's because he's a game developer, and
Yeah,
so he's doing it through the lens of like
his life or whatever.
he's doing it through the lens of he knew a game developer who was creating these little vignettes on his own, and he would send the stuff to the creator of this game, and he would enjoy them. I hate using the word he so many times instead of names because I don't remember their names, but
Sure.
he seems so. Which of these two people am I talking about? Um, so developer A made this game, and developer B is the fictional character who creates games in his spare time and
Sure.
sends stuff to creator A. And the creator A is so distraught over the fact that creator B has stopped making games that he shares all of the games with us, the audience, and gives us a walkthrough of what they are and why they're neat and why he felt they were important. And so I don't know, it's kind of neat.
Yeah, that there's an appeal in the way that pitch goes. That feels like it might be neat.
Um, and it's an hour and a half. I don't know if you ever tried Stanley Parable.
No, I've looked over people's shoulders at game conventions and whatnot, but
It's an interesting one because it's kind of like an Edith Finch experience as well, like where there's not really much to do, but
Mm.
as you walk through the environment, there's a narrator describing what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
which changes depending on what you're doing. So like if you
Yeah.
follow the narration, then you get a very short story, but if you start going against the narrator, then the narrator starts getting mad and like punishing you and like changing stuff around and stuff. It's a really interesting experience about like freedom of choice.
How long is it?
It depends on how many times you want to play through it.
I see.
I think it's like 15 minutes if you just like follow what the narrator tells you to do.
Gotcha. Otherwise, it expands indefinitely,
Yeah,
unfolds
yeah,
differently. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So it's interesting because both of these are like these very artistic productions about like choice,
Mm-hmm.
I think. And what's interesting is a few years back I volunteered for the Indie Mega Booth,
Yeah.
and I happened to this guy here. I really need. I'm thinking Alexander Pope.
That's
Uh,
the guy who made Papers, Please.
right. So that's
I
not
think.
right. So who did Stanley Parable?
Is Alexander his name? Something Pope.
Alexander Davy Redden. So um, Davy Redden wanted to go for lunch, so as a volunteer at the Mega Booth, I watched over his booth and helped demo Stanley Parable. And Davy didn't come back from lunch.
I kind of vaguely remember that. I vaguely remember that. By the way, it's Lucas Pope. Just
Right, right.
is the Papers, Please guy.
Papers, please, yet. So I could never figure out whether like something came up and he just couldn't come back, or if this was like part of his experiment and to see what would people how people would react to situations. Because I was supposed to be watching his booth for like an hour, and I think I ended up doing it for like 3 or 4.
Brutal. You should reach out. We should reach out to him and see if that was an experiment. He was actually just watching you the whole time from like somewhere
With binoculars from the other end of
the. That's great though. That's really funny.
Yeah, so I played through that. I played through That Dragon Cancer,
mm-hmm.
which is a 2-hour story that I really hate when it's these personal stories and I don't know people's names, so I'm going to take the time to look up his name.
I'm aware of it, by the way. His son had cancer.
Right, Joel Green. Yeah. So it's a 2-hour short film basically about Joel Green's 4-year fight through cancer, and it's a really weird game.
That's another one that I think I've watched over some shoulders. I'm pretty sure they brought that to PAX or something. But I'm well aware of it, but I don't know anything about it because I haven't actually played it.
It's interesting because it's like you don't. I feel like it worked better as a game than it would have as a short film, even though it could have been a short film. Because I feel like part of what's interesting about the game is this feeling of helplessness that you get by these constant flow of terribly controlled sequences. And I feel like the fact that it's difficult for you to control is what makes the situation more relatable.
Yeah, I can totally get that. Yeah.
So it was interesting. I've been catching up on a bunch of smaller games. Another one was Potato Man Seeks the Truth.
Haven't heard of that one.
It's I guess comparable to VVVVVV.
Okay, yeah. Which you hated, if I recall.
Yeah, this one's shorter and easier.
VVVV is like 40 minutes.
Yeah, this one took me 40 minutes. But I don't know, it felt more palatable for some reason.
Sure.
It was only 5 levels, and they were. It took skill to get through them. I died quite a few times, but it was better than I was expecting. It was one of those ones that I got in like the Humble Freedom bundle, I think, several years back, and it's something I'd never heard of, and I had discounted it as something I would never play. But then I just decided I would start playing through a few shorter games, and that was something I owned already, so why not?
Yeah,
and
gotcha.
I think it's one you might enjoy. It's like VVVVV, where it's very short and platforming.
Those are the 2 check boxes you have for me to like the game, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's not the farthest thing from truth, but yeah, I'm listening to you talk about That Dragon Cancer, and the beginner, what was it called? Sorry, Beginner's Guide. Yeah, and those are just very not my type of game, of course.
Yeah.
At the same time, like, did I ever tell? I might have already told this in the podcast. I feel like I'm already like we're not that far into the podcast. I'm repeating stories, but I remember I was at this party one time, and I got in this big argument. Not argument, but like I just remember there was some like whatever arts master's degree person who was being really obnoxious about everything and was going on about how like video games could never be like artistic product or something.
Yeah.
And I'm not one of those people that would be like mad, or I would just be like, whatever, sure, that's your opinion, I don't care. I don't even.
You just raise your hand and be like, wrong.
Well, to me, everything can be art, right? It's a really weird statement. Like I don't know, shoes can be art. You design the shoes in a certain way, and now the shoes look different. Like you're walking down the street, dance down the street. Like in a way, that's art. Like everything can be art, right? It's just a weird, obnoxious statement. But anyway, I remember like the next day we went to this person's like show, and their whole show was all these like I think their focus for their masters was on new media or interactive media or something, and it was all these interactive media things. So it was all these like, it was almost like she had filmed herself doing a few different things, and then you stand in front of the TV and you do something, and then she would mimic it because she had pre-filmed a few different things or something. And I just remember thinking like, you know, video game is kind of a loaded term, but this is an audio visual experience you're doing here. Like, why is this okay, but these other things are not, right? I think in my mind, she was like, she decided that a video game was this whatever, right, commercial thing that people need to shoot things and get a score to raise up and whatever. But my point, I guess, like I actually I recognize that there's just this, you know, you have this audio visual interactive medium and you can do so many things with it. And when I say I'm not into something like I don't know, That Dragon Cancer, it's because I'm into really gamey like Magic the Gathering rule set type stuff, and that's my passion, if you will. But like, I totally recognize the value of such experiences. I think it's awesome they exist. I just I might not provide my hour and a half to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally fair to be somewhat adverse to a message that's being communicated via a certain medium.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not a fan of quilting, right? So if
quilting can't be art.
Yeah, but like, you know, someone could make a quilt about their battle with cancer, and it's a very important thing to him, and there's going to be tons of people that appreciate that, and
Yeah.
I'm unfortunately not going to be one of those people, right?
Yeah.
So
same deal, totally. Yeah.
But yeah, it's platformy and it's short, so
right up my alley.
Yeah. Another one I tried is Monster Prom.
Monster Prom, okay.
Which is like a dating sim, I guess.
Oh, I think I know the one. Yeah.
Didn't enjoy it at all, but it was only an hour, so you know, I can say I beat it.
Cool.
I've played dating sims and stuff that I've enjoyed. I think the best example of one that I've enjoyed was Persona 4.
Yeah. Because it's kind of got some other things going on.
Yeah, it's not the game itself; it's part of the game. And I
like it when they do that. Yeah,
I enjoy that mechanic of like building relationships with some characters and losing relationships with other characters. It's just I don't know. It's I don't know. I need more than just that.
That's fair. I almost, like, at one point I wanted to make a game that was like almost like, say, a JRPG or whatever, but like not fighting. Like, it was all about relationship building and stuff. And like, you had to like succeed as a person. Like, in retrospect, it would probably be one of those games that's like interesting and fun to make, but not necessarily to play. I don't know. Maybe, like, I think there's a lot you can do outside of just fighting. Like, that's when I load up a modern, I don't know, whatever, some RPG or whatever, and it's just fighting. I'm just like, come on, can't we do anything else now? Like, I'd love to see them make an interesting game with interesting decisions that's not just fight. It's not even interesting anymore when you're just mashing the button. Anyway, everything you say, I pull it in some weird digression. Yeah. So go on.
I constantly wonder whether or not you'd like Undertale.
I should play it because I feel like you brought it up a few times.
It's I enjoyed the game. I don't enjoy it to the extent that the fan base seems to enjoy it.
I think you said it was, I forget what you said, hugely flawed, but worth a spin or something like that.
I think if I were to play it today for the first time, having played Nier Automata and grown a little bit more used to bullet hell type games, I would enjoy it. I was turned off of it because of how geared it was towards bullet hell gameplay at the time. But I think I can appreciate that more today.
Interesting. Whereas I always loved like Radiant Silvergun and Ikaruga and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's a cross between a JRPG and a bullet hell game, and it toys with that idea of there can be more to a game than just fighting. It's probably one you should find time for someday. Among all the other thousands of games that you should make time for.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? I literally just wrote it down, so that doesn't mean anything, but I'll follow up and think about it. I'll think about moving it up my list.
Speaking of making time for stuff, I feel guilty because I feel like I've just commandeered half the podcast here towards what our topic wasn't. And part of what our topic is supposed to be is how hard it is to find time for projects.
For projects. Well, you're succeeding in finding time for games, and that's awesome.
Which I mean, these ones that I all mentioned, the Beginner's Guide was an hour and a half. Dragon Cancer
Yeah.
was 2. Potato Man at 1. Monster Prom 1. So, and that's over like a 5-week period.
Yeah, I do think finding time for games. I don't know what your experience is. In my experience, finding time for games versus projects is still a very different thing. I mean,
Yeah.
games. There's social games which I really do enjoy, but like I can be exhausted at the end of a work day. My kids screamed at me all day. I'm grouchy, whatever, and like it's like 9 p.m. and I can sit down and play whatever Smash Brothers for 2 hours. But like I just don't have the energy to like start working on a project. So like I feel like making time for a project and making time for like games or very very leisurely things is a very different thing for me.
Yeah, it's like you're finding time to unwind versus finding time to do something that quote unquote matters.
Yeah, matters. Well, I almost find like I would divide it into passive activities and active activities for myself personally. Whereas like where like I guess like playing a game can be a very passive thing. You read the text, you move. Like ideally, it's not. My favorite games are the ones that are not, where you're very involved in making and making decisions, and it's interesting. But you know, say Mario, you load it, you run to the left, you jump, you react. Like it's pretty unwindy type behavior, right? Whereas like making a game is a lot of thinking and planning and stuff. I guess my point is like I'm thinking of like if you're studying something, it's just easy to sit down and just like read it kind of, and it's a fairly passive activity, even though it's, I mean, maybe that's a project, maybe it's not, I don't know. There's certain activities, I just find active activities are the hardest thing to make time for, because you have to make the time, but you also have to not be exhausted. And like especially projects, especially with other people, all of a sudden it's like you have to schedule those blocks of time, and then the kids are like doing their thing, and that's when, and time zones like between you and I, man, all these like just all that kind of thing is always a lot of there's just a lot of headwinds.
Yep. I feel like you've mentioned a couple times wanting intentionally to play fewer games this year. Is that something that you've been doing to try to make time for projects, or at least for other pastimes? Or
You nailed it. So I have been intentionally, like, I'll still play games. Like the kids are like, "Hey, let's play a game." I'll be like, "Sure, whatever." But I'm kind of like temporarily. This isn't some sort of permanent thing, but just I've been temporarily avoiding deliberately playing games. Like, you know, tomorrow I'm going to make 5 hours to like just play through this game or something like that. Or like, you know, like we always talk about these lists we have. I've just kind of cooled on that a little bit. I've been doing some self contemplation too. I think I've always really enjoyed activities that make me feel like I'm learning something or getting better at something. And when I think of like games for the longest time, like I always wanted to be involved in games in some way and play games. It kind of, I was more like you are now, I think, where it's like, I mean, you're actually doing it. So you exceeded anything I really, really did. But like I had this idea that I would be making games or working in games. And so playing games was, of course, an unwinding activity, but it was also like, you know, I'm analyzing the game. I have to play a bunch of games to get a good understanding of how to make games well. If you want to be a filmmaker, you're probably watching lots of films. If you want to be I don't know, like some sports example, if you want to be a football player, you watch all the other teams play and you master their techniques or whatever, right? Just that kind of thing. So there's always that kind of back of mind thing. Also, like, I don't know, like any game where you can kind of learn something, I guess, like some of the adventure games where you're like going through some cool like future and they just talk about stuff a lot. There's a lot of interesting stuff there. I just find like I've felt less of that satisfaction playing games lately, because, you know, I'm not really aiming for a game industry job right now. It'd be cool to make something on the side. I keep having those ideas, but like it's kind of fizzled a few times, and I've cooled on it lately. And I don't know, I just don't derive the same like learning advancement pleasure I used to always get out of games lately. And it was the same with movies. I used to watch so many movies, and it was always like I want to grow up to be like a film critic, or I'm going to have this film blog. And once I kind of cooled on that idea, all of a sudden the movies became less interesting. It's almost like they need to serve some purpose, or I'm less excited or something like that. And so lately, I mean, you know, job's been busy. I've still been drawing a bunch. I'm just trying to like, I don't know, just do other things, hang out with the kids a little more. So yeah, to answer your question, I have been kind of intentionally doing other things with my time, I guess.
So I'm just curious though. Like I feel like you've mentioned reading more manga in the past. Like, are you substituting that time with like different leisure activities, or are there actual projects that you're trying to make some sort of headway on as well?
Um, I guess just getting better at drawing is the project, and it doesn't have some sort of concrete end goal. It's just for fun,
Mm.
and it's not meant to be anything. Like I'm not trying to, I don't know, replace my career or something.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that activity has given me that enjoyment that I used to get from all these other things, and
yeah,
so
yeah,
there's been a lot of that. I guess like your comment about like reading comics or something like that's. I think that goes in line with like when I wanted to make games, I played games. When I
yeah,
wanted to have
yeah,
something to
yeah,
do with film, I watched film, and it's almost like now that I'm kind of into like that more, it's like just exposing myself more. It's just really
yeah,
fun. That felt like you're asking, so I'm telling you. It feels really weird. Like I don't know if this even makes sense. It's just how I tend to be. That's why I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
really like. I don't like advertise myself as like I'm this awesome artist or something. It's really
Yeah.
it's just for fun, right?
You
But
start up your art station.
yeah, right. Get that going. But yeah. Also just like kid stuff. Like they're starting to get more and more interested in kind of art stuff and obviously games a little bit. Like most of my gaming has been with the kids. Um, yeah, I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at right now. It's a weird place to be because I feel like a lot of it, if I'm honest, is just planning for the next few years and job busyness too.
Hmm.
Because like once your job gets busy enough, it's like you have to. I guess I just had more mind share on other things before my job was as busy as it is now, and so I'm wondering if I can like we always talk about early retirement and stuff. I'm just wondering what I'm going to do over the next few years. Like maybe focus kind of on really nailing the job now, and then either retiring early or I don't know, switching into a career that's less demanding, and then
Hmm.
at that point doing kind of more like maybe get back into game development stuff on the side. And at that point, I think I would like that would motivate me to be more into like games and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I'm just doing other hobbies. I think it's more like I'm doing more kind of again learning based things. That sounds weird, but like drawing feels like I'm getting better. So I'm practicing. I'm doing something. Even like I think I mentioned, I started going to the gym again,
Hmm.
which is the most boring thing in the universe. I hate it, but like I'm getting something out of it, and I don't know. It's a big thing for me recently.
You,
So
you say it's you say it's the most boring thing, but I imagine that any of the masters of the universe, they must have gone to the gym because He-Man is pretty ripped.
little bit, yeah, yeah. People who like that's their life to go to the gym all the time. That's cool. I'm not. I would never criticize. I wonder how they got into that mindset because I just don't find it interesting.
I mean, I think it's people. Whenever you have any hobby, I think there's like this motivation to get good at the hobby,
Yeah.
and I think for a lot of people really are interested in like bulking up and getting as many reps in as they can, or being able to run X amount of distance without stopping and stuff. And I don't know, for some reason I very rarely have had that sort of interest when it comes to physical activities. I used to do a lot of rock climbing, and it was weird because it's always I kind of dreaded going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's like if I wasn't going to the gym with someone else who needed me to be there so that he could do it too,
hmm
I I probably wouldn't have gone. And I mean,
Yep.
you look at me today, I don't go. But that said, I loved it so much when I was actually in the process of doing it.
Yep. Yep.
And
I
I
hear
would
you.
I would go 3 times a week rock climbing, and I there's different grades to the difficulty of the walls. And like when I started, I couldn't like hang off of the wall. Like there's inclines which are basically you're climbing on a roof, and it's just like
Mhm.
I couldn't get my feet up so that like all four of my limbs were touching the roof simultaneously at first.
Are we talking about like it's almost like you're on the underside of a roof,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you're literally hanging. You're not just on top of the roof, right?
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
mean, if I was on top of the roof and I couldn't get all four limbs to touch, that would be a
I
whole
was trying
other
to
issue.
yeah, I was trying to imagine what was going on. I was imagining you like slipping down the slope or something.
Yeah, no,
Anyway.
no, no. Yeah, incline is when you're basically hanging from the
hmm
ceiling, or a slope, and it's like when the first night I went, I couldn't just hang.
hmm
I was that out of shape, and then so the difficulty curve I think started at like a grade 7, and then went up to 8, 9, and then the tens. I think it's like an exponential curve or something how they get difficult.
Yeah.
So by the time you get to 10, they start separating it into like 10 A, B. And then I was at like 11 B, I think, was the difficulty I was at. I think it only goes up to like 13 or something.
Right.
So I was doing pretty good level walls by the time I finished. And then I moved and lost my climbing partner and had a really hard time ever getting back into it. But
Yeah.
I think that's the same thing with like going to the gym. Is just like a lot of people have partners or they have the trainers or whatever to help force them to actually do it. But you get those burst of hormones and stuff when you're actually in the process that it's enjoyable and easy to keep at it.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that too. It's almost like a social thing. I guess for me, I'm less interested in like something about like more creative pursuits, like making games or drawing or something. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean, yeah, you could make a terrible game or you can draw and your art sucks shit or something, but like it's still kind of yours. You know what I mean? Like you're making something unique. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
like if you were just a runner, like you have a max speed, you have like your best time. Like there's going to be people out there who are strictly better, no matter how you look at it, right? Like they're faster than you, and like I don't know, like the less the more the less you can really just measure something by how like it's good or it's bad. I'm a little more into it, I guess. Like that's why like some like very physical activity, like how much can you lift or how fast can you run the marathon, aren't really interesting to me because they're just numbers. They don't mean anything. You're either
Mm-hmm.
competing with others or you're not. You're just trying to make yourself healthy. But kind of who cares? Whereas like if you're like a singer songwriter or something like that kind of hobby, I don't know. I think that's really cool because you can't really like objectively measure like okay that guy's an 8 as a singer but this other person's an 8.5, so we'll just go with the 8.5. Like it's different styles, you know what I mean? Like I like that a lot. The other
Yeah.
thing I like, I guess, is like hobbies you can take to old age. It's weird to think about it, but like I've never been I always wonder about people who are like bodybuilders or sports stars or models or something because like someday you're going to be 50, 60 and you're going to lose everything, right? Whereas if you're like a chess star or an artist or something, like maybe you get a
Yeah.
little slower or you draw differently or something. I don't know, whatever. But like you kind of, it's not something that just goes away because you're older now.
I mean, I guess it's interesting when you think of that terms because, like, you know, a bodybuilder is going to be able to continue bodybuilding much longer than I am.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I just don't do it. Like I threw my back out. I don't even know how. I don't think I did anything to exert myself.
You like slept in the wrong angle.
Yeah.
We suck. Getting older sucks, man.
Yeah,
It's like your pillow was a little rotated that night, and now you're
yeah,
all bent out of shape. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. But I mean, like, there's 100-year-olds running marathons and stuff. Like, I feel like if that's something you're interested in, you can take it into old age. Assuming you don't get hit by a car or something.
yeah. It I don't know. You're right, and I hope people think that way. I remember that was what I was assumed. Like, if I was like a bodybuilder, what's the point? Because someday I'll be 60 and it won't matter, or like something like that. And I remember I was reading an interview with Arnold Schwarzenegger, the whatever most famous bodybuilder or whatever, and like he was going over a period of his life where he actually felt that way. He was saying when he turned 60, like his body wasn't what it used to be, and it just depressed the hell out of him.
Mm-hmm.
And that was almost validating to me. It's like, well, if you were a chess star your whole life, it's not like once you turn 60 you just can't play chess anymore. I mean, I know there's cognitive decline that happens and so forth, but like as an artist, I mean, do artists at some point just suddenly like look at themselves in the mirror and be like, oh, I'm too old now? Like, I don't know. It's like Frank Frazetta had a stroke at one point and he lost the ability to use his right arm or his right hand, so he started drawing with his left hand. I don't know if you know that story at all or care.
Yeah.
But I mean, old age can hit anyone in all these different ways, or you could go blind and stuff. I don't know, I just feel like physical prowess or attractiveness is a more transient thing.
Yeah, the somewhat related, Hideo Kojima just 3 days ago said, turned 58 years old today, and although my body's failing me, my creativity's not waning yet. Until my brain loses its creative power, I'll continue to strive to create things. That's my instinct, and that's what I love to do. Thank you.
I'm sad to hear him say his body is failing him. But yeah, that's funny.
He
There you go.
probably doesn't know what it's like to have my body.
Yeah. I remember actually my dad, we were just talking about getting older. This is a long time ago, but I think he had just turned 50, and I was asking what it was like to turn like 40 and 50 and all this. And he said turning 40 was fine. Doesn't matter. It's just a number. There's this societal, thing about 40. But he didn't care. But he said 50 is when everything falls apart and starts to hurt.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm getting kinks in my neck and I'm in my 30s. So now I'm kind of terrified of turning 50. But I don't know. If my creativity is still here, man, that's good enough for me.
Yeah, it's been kind of weird for me. I feel like I'm playing more games now than I used to, just because I wish I'd kept track of it more in my youth. Because I have my spreadsheets and stuff, and I don't have
Mm,
any data to actually compare whether or not I'm playing more. But I mean, at least when I was in college, I remember beating. I think the most games I beat in a year was like 24 or something,
hmm
and this year I think I'm up to like uh 30 something this year so far. Yeah, I beat 31 games this year so far.
hmm
Um, and I don't know. I feel like I'm spending more time playing games because like you said, it's it's easier when it's entertainment to just kind of drop in and do something at the end of a day when you're
Yep.
tired and stuff.
Yep.
Whereas like since I've had my kid, I find it so much harder to make time for projects.
Yep.
Um, I
Totally.
don't know. Like you and I, before we had kids, we had tried doing an indie game or two together,
hmm
and we dedicated a good chunk of time each week to that. And while I was doing that, I was also going to the gym, and I was also taking a post secondary class and working full time, and I was going doing fencing, and I was spending time with friends. And it's like now I basically have work and family and video games, and it's like I find it really hard to make time for other stuff. Like 2 years ago, I think, maybe 3 years ago, I did a freelance project where I came up with a curriculum for a visual effects program for a
hmm
college,
hmm
and it took me like, I don't know, 4 or 5 months to do this. And in
hmm
order to do it, like, I had to schedule with my wife, like, I need you to take my son every Saturday and every Sunday for like the 6 hour window or something, so I have time to work. And it's like the
hmm
rest of the time, it's like, I don't know. Like I think I started by saying, I guess it was last podcast. I said how the temperatures had been really hot, so our kid was sleeping in the office with the air conditioning.
Yep.
And when we finally got him back to his room, I stayed up till 2 a.m. to play video games because it was the first time I had access to my computer at
Yep.
night. Right.
Yep.
It's kind of like that, where like there's so many times where my kid gets out of bed after we tuck him in and comes looking for us. Like he's almost 7 years old and he's still getting out of bed almost twice a night. So
Wow.
it's hard to work on a project that I think I'm going to need any level of focus for,
Yep.
knowing that there's a very high chance that I'm going to get interrupted.
Yep. Look at my life. That's my day job, my everything. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I think.
Um,
Sorry. Go on.
no, no, no. Go ahead. I was just going to
I,
expand on that, but
well, I was just gonna say, like, I think, I mean, it's easy to focus on the kid thing, and
mhm,
I feel like this conversation over the past 2 or 3 years for me, I would have always focused on the kid thing, but now I'm finding like it's kind of like adulting attacks you from all angles, right? It's like you have
mhm,
kids, and that eats up hours. Even like a family, a spouse, like you want to spend time with them a reasonable amount of time. Maybe they're also a like working person or something, but still, you're not just going to ignore them, right?
mhm,
Um, Job, like as I've gotten more senior, I've gotten busier. Like there's just so many ways that time is eroding, and it's almost like I look back at even when I was in Vancouver. Wow, it's been a long time. 7 years ago.
mhm,
It felt. I guess I've never gotten more time. Like I think
mhm,
the nature of your job, maybe like you just like you go for, you switch companies every few years, and so I think you have less of like this monotonic kind of just change over time than me. Maybe I'm not sure,
mhm,
but like for me, I just feel like I just get my job scope goes up, and so I just get busier and busier. Plus kids, and it was always easy to think when the kids were younger, like, oh, I'm so busy now, but when they get older, I'm going to get a breath, and it's going to be nice. And to some degree, that's true. They get a little more routine and stuff, but like I think probably like what you're experiencing now, like I'm actually scared for like elementary school and stuff where they're going to be going to
mhm.
programs and stuff. Like that's great. I want to spend time with my kids, but like I don't anticipate having any time because I have to bring them to their programs and go, do stuff. It's life just attacks your time in so many ways, right?
Mhm.
I guess like the younger you are and the less you have going on, it feels like you're busy, but you're not really busy till, like now I look back on those times and think, man, I wish I'd like used some of that time a little better.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because like um, I am. It's hard for me to track my time a little bit more because I spend so much of it with my kid
hmm
these days. But like when I was working in Australia, I felt like I worked a long time each week. Like I don't remember how much crunch I was doing. I remember I crunched as much as like 90 hours in a week.
Oh, wow.
But that was only like a few weeks that I did that. I think it was much closer to like 50 hour weeks on average.
But you still have more time because you had no
And,
kids.
and I had a 2 hour, like I had a commute that I had to do every day, but I did have more time. And part of that was actually like I had no video games.
Yeah, there you go.
I didn't bring any consoles with me other than my DS Lite, I think. So I think I did play the Kingdom Hearts game while I was in Australia, but I don't think I really played anything else.
Mm.
And we spent so much of our times just like getting out and exploring and seeing the city that we were living in for the first
Yeah.
time. And I like haven't done any tourism stuff at all really since coming to Montreal. It's been either work, uh, making time for freelance work, or
Kids.
kids. And I feel like I it's interesting because like this podcast that we do for our audience of ourselves,
Yes.
it's something that I guess kind of is like going to the gym, where I was saying like having a partner that
Yeah,
forces
yeah.
me to do it allows me to do something that I really enjoy doing.
Yep.
And it's like
You wouldn't do it.
it's really hard to do something solo.
Yeah.
Like we tried again this past year working on a Nintendo game together, and I really enjoyed doing that. And for whatever reason, it started to fall through, and we all discontinued. And I haven't picked up a new project like that in the meantime. It's really tough to be motivated to do something like that entirely by yourself.
It's extremely massively difficult. I remember when we were working on the indie game company in Vancouver, and like there was some deadlines or whatever, and we would like literally stay up till like 4 trying to get stuff in time, right? I think that was, I mean, I'm sure everyone's had this kind of experience, or a lot of people have, where it's like, yeah, it I don't know, it sucks, I guess, and it's bad for your health, but it was in a way like fun or enjoyable, or like, you know, you feel great after it's done. And part of that is because you're with people who are going through the same thing. Like you and I like stayed on an audio line or something. I don't remember exactly, just like pounding out features till like 4 a.m. or something because there was deadlines. And it's like, that would have sucked to just be alone in an apartment doing, right? To me,
Yeah.
some of these solo developers, I mean, a lot of them talk about their
Stardew Valley.
Yeah, Stardew Valley. Yeah, I mean, you read some of the earlier interviews with this guy, and like it's all about his mental health, and he makes some really interesting points, basically saying like, you know, it's very easy now to look back on everything and be like, wow, you have all these millions of dollars, you're so successful, it was so worth it. But he said like going through the experience of developing the game, he never knew it was going to be a hit. For all he knew, he could release it after 5 years of potentially just wasting his life, and it would just fizzle, and that's it. And now he has to go work at EA or something, right? And like, I at least feel like if he was developing Stardew Valley with a friend or something, like, you know, they could fail together and be like, you know, not quite laugh it off, but like it's an experience now, and there's times you could look back on it differently. To do that solo would be a monumental I don't know, bucket of willpower.
Yeah, it's brutal either way. I think like by doing it yourself, at least it's all on you, and you don't have to worry about anyone else dropping the ball on you.
Yep.
But because that is difficult. Like I'm working on the Nintendo game, and I'm not doing any of the programming, right? So I stick to my thing and I try to get it done. But then if something else doesn't happen, it's just like, okay, well, I'm kind of helpless to speed that up or to help in any way.
Yep.
Whereas, you know, I guess that's also the advantage at the same time, is like I can focus on my thing and make it the best that I can without having to sacrifice and make my pixels rotate. And
I think we have a tendency on this podcast to refer to jokes from older conversations. we should do a whole podcast. We should do a whole episode on like the pixel thing, because that's definitely something I could bark at. I agree with you. I think I would just say it's very different. Like I feel like when you're solo, there's no one to disappoint either. There's no one to disappoint. There's no one to be disappointed by. There's no anything. And so it works two ways, where it's kind of stress free, but then part of that is that there's not a motivation to continue, or like you kind of just plod along at it, right? There's nothing motivating you to like stay up till 4 every night. And so the project maybe goes nowhere. Whereas like with other people, it moves forward generally,
Mhm.
hopefully, but then you have kind of that pressure and you have to arrange to like, meet up at times. And like, if you're going on a vacation, you have to tell people I'm going on vacation. Nothing's going to happen for this week.
Mhm.
Because, it's just a co-project of sorts.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. It's kind of like, I would say that's definitely better. Like stuff moves around. That's generally how the best things are built.
Yeah.
It's just like going back to the topic at hand, when you have a busy life and whatever, it can be really hard to like, I guess like it's just so much easier to fit a solo project in to a busy life than like a kind of a high commitment project with
Yeah.
others. The other thing, going back to the kid thing all the way back, I feel like um at the very least, like before kids, even with a demanding day job,
Mhm.
for the most part it was routine. Like
Mhm.
kids are just such a, like random things happen, or somebody needs to
Yeah.
go here, or like we had to bring my son to the hospital the other night. And that of course I'm going to focus on that instead of like what I wanted to do that night. But
Yeah.
if
Yeah. Yeah.
if I had committed to something with someone, that would have been canceled just because of that. And like, you just have a lot more of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just randomly complaining, not complaining, randomly highlighting
Yeah.
the fun things of child raising. But
Well,
definitely it's
I feel like
a
it's
thing.
trickier in our situations as well, where we are the vagabonds that move around. Like we don't have immediate family down
Yeah,
the street to ever help with looking after the kids.
totally. Yeah.
So that's just it. Like evenings and weekends go to that. Like there's never any relief, particularly like during this pandemic. Like we haven't hired a babysitter through the pandemic, right?
We have never once hired a babysitter.
We did when we were in. I mean, we had a nanny when
Hmm.
we were in Vancouver, and so I, I don't remember exactly what the situations were, but we had a babysitter that would help us out every now and then. But it's been 20 2019,
2 years.
2018, I think is probably the last time we hired a babysitter. It's like we had someone who was a regular babysitter and then they graduated and we just never found a new one.
I see. We kind of had the double whammy. Like we moved to another country where
Hmm.
we didn't even have any parents from either side in the country. So in Murica, there's no parents at all. So that's great when there's a pandemic and all the
Yeah.
borders closed. But also because we chose to raise our kids in Japanese first,
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
that made it practically impossible to hire a babysitter even if we wanted to, because they
Yeah,
wouldn't be able to communicate with the kids. We actually at one point looked into hiring a Japanese babysitter,
yeah,
and of course there's barely any around. And
yeah,
we actually talked to one person, and I don't know, it just kind of fell through. But yeah, that like even my own parents, like of course they could just call me and be like, she's whining about something. But like, it's still kind of, it was tough. And there's two
yeah.
kids, so like, yeah,
That
tough.
that language barrier thing. It's. I mean, we have probably we're affected by that slightly just because we're in Montreal, where it's English and French,
Yeah,
and there were a reduced number of candidates simply because some
you
people
want.
only speak French.
Hmm.
Or actually, I don't even remember. I think we were looking for people who did speak French, but we had difficulty talking to them.
Yeah.
It's like we wanted someone to speak French to our kid, but it's English to us.
Yeah. You wanted a bilingual person,
Yeah.
basically, right? Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's. I mean, the language thing that's something that's tricky with moving around as
Yep.
an adult too. Like I've considered jobs in Japan, and I'm interested in putting in the effort into learning Japanese, but my wife has basically no foundation at all for
Hmm.
that. So it's a situation where like, how would she be able to have a career if we went there?
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I'm totally diverging from the topic, but
Well, I think it's the same. Like, I mean, for us, I don't know. I've always, I think if things were different,
yeah,
if like there's no languages, like we would be very open to like it'd be cool to, I don't know, move to Singapore or move
yeah,
to
yeah,
somewhere in Europe or whatever. And it's just like the language thing, and you have to think of it the other way, right? Like if we moved to Germany or something, how would
yeah,
we, like, what about our kids? Like we want them to speak English and Japanese. What are we going to do, and how are we going to keep that up, and whatever,
yeah,
like blah 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 blah, right? And so like, and like there's always these ideas of like this inevitable return, I guess. Like I always feel
yeah,
like if I was to move to like Germany, let's say I loved it, like with a family, like is my wife gonna love it? If she
yeah,
does, are we gonna learn German? Like it's just, I don't know, at this stage in life it's just so hard to do that kind of thing, I think.
Yeah. We're coming up on time now, so there we go.
All right.
Let's try to make some time to edit this podcast. That's the next step. There's the time
man.
recording and the time and editing.
Yeah. All right, man. Till next time.
All right. Cheers.
Yeah. See ya.